Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hindustan Times Environment Conclave, where we have thought leaders from all over the industry speaking about creating a sustainable future. As environmental concerns continue to increase, even corporate organizations need to do their bit in order to ensure a cleaner and greener world. Vedanta has been a pioneer in this context, and in order to understand Vedanta's journey, we have with us today Mr. Gaurav Sarup, Director, Carbon and Social Performance at Vedanta. Hello, Gaurav. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for
Good
joining us
afternoon,
today.
Meghna. Good afternoon.
Good
Pleasure to be.
afternoon. Very glad that you could join us today. I want to jump right into the discussion, and here's my first question for you. So, what have been Vedanta's key priorities with respect to ESG practices?
Okay. So, at the beginning, just let me say how proud we are to associate with HT Environment Conclave, and it's an honor to speak with you on the subject.
Thank you.
When it comes to Vedanta, we've been on the forefront of ESG practices for a greater part of the last decade now. As one of the world's largest natural resources companies, ESG has been at the heart of our business practice. And sustainability has taught us to look at the business scenario holistically, right? So examining not just the opportunities that our business model will create, but also to understand some of the impacts that we have on the environment and on society, both positive and negative. The result has been that there's been a lot of management attention and a series of programs in areas such as climate change, waste and tailings management, water, health and safety, biodiversity management, social performance, ethics, and improving the diversity of our workforce. As a company, we operate on the philosophy of zero harm, zero waste, zero discharge, and we want to become a company that sustainably produces the metals that will form the foundation of the emerging green economy. And so that's really how we are positioning ourselves and setting ourselves in terms of ESG.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. So moving on, minimizing carbon footprint has been a priority for major organizations given the state of the planet right now. So what has Vedanta been doing in order to minimize carbon footprint? If you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So the climate crisis is really one of the most pressing issues of our time, hands down, and it will be transformative for societies and companies alike. Right now, Vedanta is approaching this in two ways. One is to minimize and then eventually eliminate greenhouse gases from our operations over the next 30 to 40 years. Yeah. And at the same time, we want to ensure that our business, as well as the communities who live around us, are able to adapt to whatever impact that might emerge as a result of climate change. Now, to do this, we are looking to invest in innovative technologies that will help us increase the efficiencies of our operations and also to dramatically increase the share of renewable energy to power the operations that we already have. So for example, last year alone, we undertook more than 70 projects across our operations, which included programs to improve the efficiency of our boilers in our power plants, improve the load balancing measures to optimize demand for energy, reduce the use of things like furnace oil, which are more carbon intensive in nature, and to upgrade our smelter technologies, whether it's, the cathodes or the optimization of processes, right? So that was what's happening on the process efficiency side. We were also looking to set up more renewable energy. So we set up 40 megawatts of solar power at our Hindustan zinc operations. And over the next 5 years, we plan to install about 100 plus megawatts of renewable power across all of our business units. And obviously, we want to scale that up as we head into 2030, 2040, 2050. So that's essentially how we are approaching this at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, as per my knowledge, Vedanta has been a signatory to the carbon neutrality pledge. So what can you tell us more about this?
So, we're very excited to be part of this initiative. This is something that the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change has launched. And we feel it's in alignment with the Indian commitment made in Paris in 2015.
Mm.
And companies like Vedanta can really help the country achieve those climate goals. Now, as a company, we are looking at several steps to help us get there and help achieve this decarbonized world that we talk about. So early last year, early 2020, before we even became signatories to this, we had reviewed and revised our energy and carbon policy, and we had committed to substantially decarbonize our operations by 2050. Now, we've also committed to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions intensity by 20% by 2025 from a 2012 baseline, right? Now, as of FY 2020, which was the last fiscal year, we had reduced approximately 14% of our emissions intensity, and this amounts to approximately 9 million tons of avoided greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a significant quantum of GHG that is not entering the atmosphere as a result of the programs that we've undertaken. I obviously recognize there's a long way to go before we achieve carbon neutrality, but I think we've made a good start to get there.
Of course, of course. Um, so Vedanta is aligned with the recommendations made by the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, and I think it's also the first Indian metals and mining company which is coming out with the TCFD report. I understand that this is like a major, major milestone for you. So, what can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, our first TCFD report should be out by the end of this month, and we're excited to be able to share it with all of our stakeholders.
Yeah.
And it's another step in us underlining our commitment to decarbonize our business, right? The TCFD basically sets out a framework for companies to follow in order to manage our climate actions, right? And we have taken the recommendations that the body has put out for industry at large, and we're adopting it into our climate model. So, for example, last year we reconstituted the Carbon Forum, which is an internal body. It's an apex body within Vedanta to decide on our carbon strategy. Now, this body is chaired by the CEO of one of our businesses, and it has the chief operating officers as its members. Additionally, each of our business units have its own carbon working group, and these consist of cross-functional teams so that many aspects of the decarbonization agenda can be assessed and implemented. And essentially, it's these BU working groups which will be implementing the decarbonization strategy that the forum puts out. The topic is also being regularly discussed by the board sustainability committee. And so if you look at what's happened over the last 12 to 18 months, there's actually been a significant amount of work in this space. And all of that you will find reflected in the TCFD report.
Great. I'm sure that many of us will be looking forward to it. A lot of great insights from there. So, according to the Dow Jones Sustainability Index ranking, Vedanta ranks among the most sustainable companies and has been consistently improving its ESG performance year on year. Can you tell us something about what this means to the brand per se, and what have been the landmarks that have actually led Vedanta to achieve this kind of recognition?
Sure. So DJSI actually has been an excellent framework for us to track and benchmark our ESG performance, right? It does a very thorough job of examining what every company does. Excellent for management to follow those frameworks. The company's sustainability ranking, in fact, over the last 3 years has shown a trend of continuous improvement. This year we were ranked number 12 as opposed to number 21 last year. Essentially what that means is we were 86th percentile this year as opposed to 17 in 2019, as opposed to 16 2018, right? So we're happy that we are progressively improving as an organization. Much of this improvement is due to a consistent follow-up of our management teams in implementing Vedanta's internal sustainability framework, which is essentially a series of policies and standards and operating practices. it is also a result of the work that we've done to understand what our stakeholders are expecting of us as an organization. And we've put in the hard yards to get there. Now, as with many things, there's a lot of work to be done. Between 12 and 1, there's much to be achieved, but we're still proud of what we've achieved so far. And incidentally, if I talk about our group companies, Hindustan Zinc has been ranked number 7 in those same rankings, and
Right.
they have consistently been in the top 10 over the last 3 years. And this year, both Vedanta and Hindustan Zinc, we topped the rankings in the Asia Pacific category. So all of this is an indicator that what we're doing is in alignment with what the world expects, and is starting to make a positive impact on our environmental performance, as well as what we see on the social side of things.
Sure. So, moving a little aside from what Vedanta has been doing so far, if we have to look at the broad picture, how do you think corporate organizations can actually make an impact when it comes to the environment? Like, very broadly, if you have to summarize a few points, can you help us understand what kind of a role they can play, given that the climate crisis is very much upon us?
So we've talked about the climate crisis, and essentially those being actions to either bring down your emissions and also to help adapt. So I won't go into that, but there are other areas where companies such as Vedanta, large corporates in the Indian space, on the global scene, can
Right.
definitely work on areas such as waste management, areas on improving your impact on the overall ecology of where you operate, looking at how you source your water and improving your water efficiencies, increasing recycling rates, making sure that you're not discharging anything out into the environment which will pollute the air, soil, or water. So these are all things that can happen, that companies can do in the time of the kind of ecological crisis that we all face, right? And every industry has its own technical solutions to it, but driving all of that essentially is the management commitment that starts right at the top. And definitely in Vedanta, we have Mr. Anil Agarwal, our chairman, who's been very vocal, both internally and externally, about projecting an image that we need to make sure that we're a company that's environmentally and socially sensitive. And all of our internal goals and targets are driving to achieve that.
Right. You mentioned waste management in your last answer, and that brings me actually to my next question. Vedanta's waste to wealth initiative, sorry, is not only reducing the volume of waste produced, but it is also improving the metal recovery rates. So, what kind of learnings can all of us have from this kind of from the impact of this kind of an initiative?
So waste is definitely one of those areas that for a metals and mining company becomes critical when we are looking at reducing our environmental footprint. And we've taken several steps to minimize our waste. And you talked about this waste to wealth program that the company has. And under this program, we're looking to deploy technologies that help us not only reduce the amount of waste that gets generated in the first place, but also whatever gets generated, we want to recycle as much of that as possible, so that it doesn't go into a landfill or it doesn't go into any of the areas that might in the long term cause pollution. Obviously, there is some positive benefits to us in the fact that we're able to improve the metal recovery rates over there. We're also looking to see what we can do on improving the overall process impact in our value chain, and can we create some sort of circular economy model where our waste becomes the raw material for either our own operations or for other industries. So for example, if I look at, there's a category of waste in mining called high volume, low impact waste, which is essentially things like red mud and fly ash and all of these other things. And we've overall been able to recycle and reuse 88% of that waste. And in fact, if I look at one particular component, fly ash, about 105% of that waste is recycled every year. So 100% of what gets generated in the current year, and then we are starting to eat into some of the legacy waste that we have in our system. So over time, we'll look to completely eliminate this waste stream from our operations. We form partnerships with cement companies to be able to do that, and we're piloting something internally where we will eliminate a particular waste stream called aluminum dross. And this is essentially a residual waste that is generated during a smelting process. After it goes through this pilot program, we hope to completely eliminate this waste, and it will be used as a raw material in the steel industry, as well as for some of the internal operations that we have. So a lot of exciting work happening here, and we hope to keep reporting on this as we move forward in the coming years.
Sure. Looking forward to it. You mentioned partnerships. If you can tell us more about some of the most important partnerships you've had, which have really kind of helped you move towards a sustainable future.
So I would say, when we're looking at sustainability, there is the management side of things where you're setting the agenda for the organization, and there are technological partnerships. I want to talk about some of the management partnerships because that really helps drive the technological solutions. There are many such solutions available out there, and it's just a matter of adopting them. In the carbon space, there is the CDP, which is the formerly known Carbon Disclosure Project, which is something that Vedanta has been actively participating in for many years now. And that, again, helps us, along with TCFD, identify what we should be looking at in terms of our climate agenda. There is the UN Global Compact, and we've been aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals that UN has, and we've been consistently taking targets in our sustainability program to align and meet those 2030 targets. On the technology side, I've mentioned this aluminum dross recycling work that we're doing. There's also work that we're doing with certain partners on eliminating jarosite, which is, again, a waste stream that's generated in the zinc industry. So there's, again, like I said, a lot of these partnerships in play. We are constantly also engaged with the IITs and the other leading academic institutes in the country to allow us to give access to the latest R&D.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, I would also like to know what are the steps that Vedanta is taking when it comes to water conservation and biodiversity management?
Sure. So, as I alluded to earlier in our conversation, water is one of those critical resources for the continuity of our operations. But water is unique, right? Because it's also a shared resource, both for the communities who live around us and for the ecology where we are situated. So there's a continuous effort within the organization to conserve the water and become more water efficient over time. Again, to give you an example, over the last 3 years, we've conserved more than 6 billion cubic meters of water through various programs. And two of our biggest businesses, Hindustan Zinc and Cane, which are both located in Rajasthan, which is, as you're aware, a water-stressed state. Yeah. There are significant programs underway in both those businesses to conserve water. So Cane, for example, recycles more than 90% of the water that it reuses. Hindustan Zinc has emerged as a water positive company, in fact, 2.41 times water positive. So that actually makes it perhaps one of the most efficient companies in the world in terms of water use. Now, this thing that Hindustan Zinc actually has achieved has been done through a very interesting PPP model, where Hindustan Zinc has set up a sewage treatment plant in the city of Udaipur. The plant essentially obviously treats the city's sewage, prevents that sewage from entering the beautiful lakes that Udaipur has, and all of that treated water is used by Hindustan Zinc's operations. So it's a double positive that we've been able to achieve. Treat the waste that was being generated, and we're not we are preserving actually the groundwater that we would have otherwise utilized if this access to water was not there.
Okay, that's great to know. So I think going ahead, it's also very important for organizations to empower the communities around areas where they are working. And I am sure that Vedanta also has very important initiatives that have been taken in this regard and are being taken currently. So if you can tell us more, that would be great.
So Vedanta has traditionally had a very, very strong CSR program that's been driving the work with our communities. And over the last year or so, we've also kind of expanded that to say that, look, it's not just the CSR program, it's actually how the entire company is performing and engaging with our local stakeholders that drives the improvement in the economic forecast and of any community, as well as builds the trust and gives us the social license to operate. Just to give you some numbers over here, right? So last year, Vedanta ended up supporting about 3.26 million people across our areas of operations, and
Yeah.
this work was happening in the areas of education, health, livelihood improvement, skill enhancement, women's empowerment. So a gamut of activities. There are programs that are running in places like Hindustan Zinc and our iron ore business in Goa, which are pioneering programs in the area of sports. Right, football has been one of those areas which has been really interesting. Another marquee project that Vedanta has is known as the Nandghar program. Now, Nandghar essentially is a program to build a state-of-the-art Anganwadis across the country, right? So that uh, uh, children who are about to enter kindergarten and their mothers get the right kind of early education and health programs that'll make them successful moving forward. So Vedanta has a goal of essentially putting 4,000 of these centers, and we've established more than 1,500 so far, and it's been very well recognized by the government in terms of the work that they've been doing. So it's areas and programs such as this that are really at the heart of what Vedanta seeks to achieve outside of the economic impact that is already being created through the creation of jobs, etc. Um, and I also want to point out that over the last year, with COVID being such a major factor in the across the country, in our areas of operation, we've actually taken measures to make sure that not just our business locations are protected and the workforce is protected, but also the larger community through the distribution of PPE gears, making available medical facilities, etc. So obviously, making sure that we have programs that build communities and drive an inclusive growth model is very dear to the business. Yeah.
Okay. I think you have already spoken about the work that's being done right now and what already has been done. I think it would be very interesting if you can tell us something about projects which might be in the pipeline, which you're excited about and can talk about, very importantly. Um, if anything like that you can share with us, we'd really appreciate it.
Sure. I mean, as somebody who's so deeply involved with the work that we're doing on carbon, I think we're looking at a few technologies that will help us really help us ease our dependency on thermal power, right? And that's something that is of great excitement to us. We're on the social side of things. We are looking to pilot a few programs at two of our locations that I think will dramatically change how any large business approaches communities, right? And like I mentioned here, historically we've looked at CSR as the frontline face of the organization when it comes to communities. We're looking to expand that to a much more much larger interface, and that's a very exciting project. I think if we speak in another 2 years' time, I think we'll have some interesting things to talk about. So it's those two areas which I think would be very, very interesting.
Nice, thank you. It's been a great session. Thanks, Gaurav. Lots of important things that we got to know about the organization and the wonderful work that it has been doing. So, if you have any closing comments for us, please feel free to share. Would really like to know your thoughts.
I think first of all, thank you so much, Meghna, for this discussion. It was a good opportunity to talk to you and to the larger HT audience on sustainability. This is definitely one of those areas that is critical for any business that wants to succeed moving forward, right? Historically, we've looked at environmental and social factors as perhaps lying outside the realm of business. But I think moving forward, these are going to take center stage, and the businesses that understand this are the ones who are going to become the leaders of tomorrow. And Vedanta definitely is doing everything in its power to make sure that we are aligning with that kind of management thinking. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure speaking to you as well.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you could take out time for us today. I would also like to thank Vedanta for partnering with us for this session. We are going to be back with the next session of the Hindustan Times Environment Conclave very soon. So please stay tuned to our FB page for more details. Thanks again, Gaurav. Pleasure having you here with us. We're going to sign off now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.